Kia ora koutou, and welcome to the Gallagher Academy of Performing Arts. Before we get underway, we would like to draw your attention to a few housekeeping points to ensure you enjoy your time here with us. Please note, toilets are located opposite the Opus bar in the centre of the main foyer. And lastly, please take a moment to locate your nearest exit. In the unlikely event of an emergency, you'll be asked to vacate the room in an orderly fashion. Please follow the instructions of the event and academy staff who will guide you to the assembly area. Thank you for your attention. We hope you enjoy today's event at the University of Waikato.
He honore, he kororia, he maungaronga ki te whelua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Ko te tuatahi e mihi kaana ki tō tātou ariki lui, ngā waiho noi te pō, ki runga te ahurewa tapu o ngā mātua tupula, rire hau, pai mārire. E mihi atu ki ngā whānau, ngā hoa tautoko, ma ngā tauira, ki runga te taumata, o te PhD i tēnei pō, kei te mihi atu kia koutou. I tēnei wā e karakia mō tātou. E te atua, e mihi kaana ki a koe ki roto te kaupapa i te pōlei. Ki roto ngā kaupapa mo ngā whiriwhiri kōrero, ki roto te tikanga mo ngā rangahau, ki runga te taumata o ngā PhDs. Nō reire te atua, tiruhi o mai, whakaronga mai, alahana mai mātou. Ko koe te tīmatanga, ko koe te mutunga, e hōnore te ingoa o tō tama, ko i karaiti, me te wairua tapu. Āmeni. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening to this, to the T3 Awards, TM3 Awards. For the last few years, I have been presenting the McCraw Memorial Trophy. And I'd like to acknowledge those long-suffering whānau members, friends. They actually got a genius in the house that can just probably beat you at Trivial Pursuit. But without further ado, I'm honoured to open this evening with the mihi karakia. On behalf of our ariki, ngā waiholoi te pō e Ngāti Wairere, nō reira nau mai, haere mai, whakatau mai rā. Nō reira tēnā koutou.
Tēnā koe wirimu. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. My name's Ian White. I'm Professor of Environmental Planning and Assistant Vice Chancellor Impact at the University of Waikato. And I'm going to be your MC for this evening. First of all, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight, both in the person in the room, and also I know there's quite a lot of people joining us from around the world online, cheering on their family members. This is a real fantastic turnout, and really appreciate you sharing your evening with us. Tonight, we've got a lot to look forward to. We're going to have an evening of intellectual fun, which is two words that don't often go together if you speak to our students. But we're going to have a really entertaining and inspiring evening, and our 10 finalists are going to really prove that perception wrong. I think the aim of our speakers this evening is to explain their PhD thesis, its significance, its novelty, the discoveries, in no more than 3 minutes and using no more than one single slide. And this is incredibly difficult. To provide some perspective, I asked ChatGPT what tasks are achievable in 3 minutes, just to these are going to explain their thesis in 3 minutes, and this is what ChatGPT said was achievable. It suggested I tidy up my desk. If anyone's ever seen my desk, they'll know it's more like 3 months than 3 minutes. They suggested I take a walk outside my office and then just come back in. I don't know why, but I do that multiple times a day anyways. I forget why I've left and try and think where I'm supposed to be. But one thing that ChatGPT didn't say is give an entire summary of your thesis in 3 minutes to an external audience. So that gives you an idea of the scale of the challenge tonight. And just for clarification, I know there's some supervisors present as well. So the 3 minutes refers to the time it takes them to tell you about their thesis, not write the thesis. So, which is a bit of a more tall order. Okay. Before we move on to the competition proper, it is my great pleasure to introduce Professor Emma Nicholson, the Dean of Te Mata Kairangita School of Graduate Research, who will speak more about the event and the format. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou and welcome to the 2025 3-Minute Thesis Competition Grand Final. Woohoo! Tonight we are here to celebrate the remarkable work of our doctoral researchers who have given themselves tonight the ultimate challenge. As Ian said, they have 3 minutes to explain their research and why it's significant. They have just one slide, and they have the challenge to use everyday language that is accessible to a non-specialist audience. This competition recognizes how important communication is. This is at the heart of the essence of the 3-minute thesis. To really fully maximize the impact of our research, we need to be able to engage others in what we do and why we do it. So the 3-minute thesis competition began at the University of Queensland, and I did a bit of digging into the history of the competition. Where did it come from? The idea for 3MT came about during a period of drought in the state of Queensland, where to conserve water, people were advised to limit their water consumption, and many had a 3-minute egg timer affixed to the wall of their bathrooms. And apparently one morning, the then Dean of Graduate Research at Queensland put 2 and 2 together, and the idea for the 3-minute thesis was born. Now, since then, the competition has grown hugely in popularity. It's now run at more than 900 institutions globally. I, in fact, took part in the 3MT when I was a doctoral student back in the UK. And I signed up for the 3-minute thesis not because this was somewhere that I felt comfortable. In fact, completely the opposite. This was where I felt uncomfortable. Although incredibly passionate about the research I was doing, I realized that I struggled to concisely express exactly what it is I did. And the 3-minute thesis completely changed things for me. It turned that around and encouraged me to think differently and think carefully about how I communicate. And since then, I've never once again waffled my way through that very pointed question. So, what are you working on? So tonight you will hear about research across such a wide range of disciplines. Researchers working to tackle real problems and change the way we think and do things. But most importantly, you will also witness our researchers grow their ability to communicate and connect with their audience, to explain complex concepts accessibly, and to be able to convey the excitement of their discoveries, all of which are skills that will serve them so well throughout their future careers in whatever they choose to do. So each presentation tonight will be judged on 2 criteria. The first, engagement and communication. Was the presentation engaging, and did they communicate with yourselves, the audience, in an accessible way? Did you want to find out more? The second criteria is around comprehension and content. So did the presentation again lead you as the audience to understand what their research was all about and why it mattered in the broader context? So To all our contestants, I'm already incredibly proud in each and every one of them. They have achieved so much just by putting themselves forward to stand on that big fluffy red dot here tonight. I kind of want to stroke it. And to all of you, thank you so much for coming to support their success. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the breadth of incredible research happening right here at the University of Waikato. Thank you.
Tēnā koe ama. Before we start the proceedings, I just want to say a few thank yous. So I want to thank our sponsor, Barraclough and Associates, and then just provide an introduction about how this evening's going to pan out, so you know what's in store. First, I'd like to acknowledge our judging panel. You may have spotted some people in the middle of the room who look quite official. Those are our three judges. So we have Dr. Andrew Smith, Bella Takiar Ibrahim, Associate Professor Christine Moffat. So if we can just give those a round of applause. They will be supported by possibly the most important person in the room right now, who's our official timekeeper, Hira. He'll be holding up You'll see them keep looking at him throughout because he's a timekeeper, but now for the rules. This is how it's going to work. So each finalist has 3 minutes. The timekeeper, here down there, has a countdown timer on a tablet that the finalists can see. And with 30 seconds to go, Hira will hold up an orange card to the finalists. At that point, you'll see one of two things, which is either the color drained from their face, or more likely they're going to think, yeah, I've nailed this. There's only 20 seconds to go, and I know I'm through it. At the end of the 3 minutes, they must stop speaking immediately, or they're disqualified. At the end of each presentation, they'll exit the stage, and then there'll be 3 minutes of music. So this is while the judges do their deliberations. At this point, you can talk to each other. In fact, I'd encourage you to go and say hello to the people next door. You can discuss what you've just seen and what you make of it, and then when the music stops, I come back to the stage, announce the next person, and there's respectful silence because we know that's going to happen. And then we do that 10 times because we have 10 speakers. Now, there are 3 prizes to award tonight. The runner-up will receive a prize of 500 New Zealand dollars. Can we have a whoop, please? Thank you. I appreciate that. The winner will receive a prize of 1,000 New Zealand dollars, the Professor John D. McCraw Memorial Trophy, and represent the University of Waikato at the 2025 Virtual Asia Pacific 3MT competition hosted by the University of Queensland. We're on the same page. This is good. And then you all get a vote too. So the exciting thing about this is we have a People's Choice Awards, which will be decided by you, the audience. So during the intermission, we'll have a QR code on the screen. You can scan that and you can vote for the person who you think is most deserving of the trophy. For those of you who don't have a mobile phone or don't really want to do that kind of thing, there's Tommy will be stood next to the bar in the intermission. He'll have a clipboard. Go and tell him who your favorite is, and he will record that vote. So the People's Choice doesn't receive any monetary award, but they get a deep sense of satisfaction that you all like them, and they're good at this kind of thing. Okay, lastly, housekeeping. Can you ensure your cell phones are off? I must admit, I don't even put mine on these days. I don't even know how to switch it on. And no movement during the presentations, please. Okay, let's do this. Let's get some energy in the room. There are 10 PhD students in the green room out the back watching this on a live screen. So let's just give them a round of applause and let them know we're waiting for them. Okay, it is my great pleasure to introduce the first speaker. Our first speaker is Natalie Prinz, who'll be talking on Tonga in the Tides, using cockles to restore coastal health. Please join me in welcoming Natalie to the stage.
Oh no! Another article about ecosystem degradation and biodiversity loss. Such news are demoralizing, and it feels like nature is slipping through our fingers. But what if nature itself could help us find solutions to restore such precious places? We know that ecosystems are resilient, mainly because networks of large key species keep them healthy. If the large guys are lost, recovery is slowed. Just imagine an old forest. If a storm knocks down all the big trees, the forest can recover, but it'll take decades to return to the previous healthy state. That made me wonder, wouldn't it be great if we could bring back the large guys that were lost to help ecosystems recover faster? Well, we can't really test that by replanting centuries-old trees, right? But our marine intertidal flats offer the perfect natural laboratory. In estuaries, like Tauranga Harbour, for example, runoff from the land, bringing contaminants, fertilizer, sediment, smother the sand flat and cause degradation. As a result, large, long-lived seafloor species like cockles disappear. Truly New Zealand bred, they may seem humble, but they're ecosystem engineers. They rework the sediment and interact with other animals, stir up nutrients, and keep the seafloor healthy. So I asked, if we brought them back to where they once were, can they restore what was lost? For my PhD, I moved thousands of adult cockles into degraded parts of the Tauranga Harbour and monitored how they affected the ecosystem. And the results were promising. Where cockles returned, the sediment started to breathe again. Productivity improved by 20%. Although survival was between 30 and 80%, their densities were higher than they had been originally, and their presence improved where baby cockles settled. But it isn't all about the science. Cockles are taonga, treasured by iwi and valued as kai, and symbolic of our connection to the coast. Wouldn't it be great if we could grow them for both, for food and to heal our harbours? Thanks to a grant from the Coastal Restoration Trust and by collaborating closely with councils, I will share the results with local iwi and hapu and the communities and bring back the knowledge to where it's most useful, to the people. So yes, there is hope. Well, I better go and keep working on my article about the good news on ecosystem restoration.
Well, that worked. Okay. We're now going to invite our second speaker to the stage, who's Bonnie Ban, who'll be speaking about the impact of learning the traditional Chinese musical instrument, the guzheng, in Tauranga, New Zealand, on the well-being of older Chinese people. Please join me in welcoming Bonnie to the stage.
With the development trend of an aging population, how to positively age has become an important issue that urgently needs to be solved. When older adults are confronted with the shift of the life focus from the workplace to retirement, they may experience negative emotions such as social separation, loneliness, and decreased self-confidence. For this concern, older adults can actively participate in leisure activities to help relieve these negative emotions. This background highlights the necessity of my research. As the first city in New Zealand to adopt the age-friendly city strategy, Tauranga houses many older adults who choose to spend their later years here. Maintaining activity and participation is very important in retirement, and Tauranga meets this need. Therefore, the guzheng music activities are carried out in Tauranga, New Zealand, aiming to explore the impact of participating guzheng music activities on older Chinese immigrants' well-being and cultural identity, and providing them with a new way of leisure activities to enrich their old age. In my study, I play a double role as an outside researcher and a guzheng teacher inside the research, which means the research activities are intertwined with me and a flexible shift my role accompany the research. Can I still learn a new skill at my age? Is it easy to play the guzheng? These are probably the most frequently asked questions I've heard while recruiting participants, because they are not sure whether they can still challenge themselves, such as learning new music instruments at a later age. As a result, during the teaching process, I emphasize the importance of encouragement and the interaction between teachers and students, aiming to create an informal, relaxed, and stress-free learning environment to boost the participants' passion for learning guzheng and enhance their self-efficacy. Furthermore, the guzheng is a traditional Chinese music instrument with a long history. It serves as a bridge connecting the participants' past memories in China with their current lives. As the participant described, it gives me a sense of being back home. In addition, the types of group music activities enable the participants to build friendships and experience a sense of belonging. Overall, participating in guzheng music activities has positively impacted the participants' overall well-being and provided more possibilities for older Chinese immigrants living in Tauranga, New Zealand to engage actively in their later years. So, I believe these are the meanings of my research. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ishani J. Meyer, who's going to be talking about From Story to Stewardship, Fostering Empathy for the Ocean Through Ancestral Stories. Please join me in welcoming Ishani to the stage.
Mudu patuleyate indala mutuateka niti karawa minikateka pakarala magedotata putuava. From the depths of the ocean, sleeping inside a pearl, the ocean brought my son to me. I grew up listening to stories that told me I come from the ocean. From creation stories to sea chants that guided our way, these oral stories was our knowledge system. They shaped our earliest understanding of the ocean. But today, these oral stories are no longer passed on. When colonizers arrived on our shores, they didn't just take our land. They dismissed our stories and our ways of knowing. So my research brings these oral stories back to the surface. I explore how our ancestral ocean stories have created and shaped our relationship with the ocean, and how they can help us in ocean conservation efforts today. So our stories are both history and prophecy. They tell us where we come from, but they also guide us where we can go from here. Although oral stories are fluid, so it's hard to put them right here on paper. So I actually use documentary filmmaking to create my research. Documentary filmmaking is a complex history in research because it has dehumanized people and also has captured stories in ways that they have not been in consent or in care. So for my research, I use collaborative documentary filmmaking, which means I create this research with my community. From our first conversations to our final cut, the story is built with the storyteller. They shape the narrative and they guide the process. Today, we are recreating stories and reimagining our stories. My hope for this research is that I hope it actually keeps our storytelling traditions alive. And I hope it gives voice to communities like mine, whose knowledges and stories are often excluded from global conservation efforts. And I hope it reminds us that maybe the answer to our most hardest questions in ecological care can actually start with a story. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tui McDonald. Her thesis is on celebrating our superheroes, Wahine Māori entrepreneurs and business growth. Please join me in welcoming Tui to the stage.
I love this image. It sums up how I feel about the 10,000 or so Wahine Māori entrepreneurs across New Zealand. All are superheroes in their own right. Not only are they building businesses, but they're also creating a better future for their whānau, their employees, and our economy. In 2022, Wahine Māori contributed $5.9 billion across all sectors of the New Zealand economy. Of the 24,000 Māori-owned businesses, 40% are owned by Wahine. Across the full business mix, we balance our economic, social, environmental, and our cultural outcomes. We employ more Māori, and we exercise our rangatiratanga, where we define what success means to us. There's solid academic knowledge in the areas of the Māori economy, entrepreneurship and trade, and emerging literature in Wahine Māori entrepreneurship. However, none exploring what their drivers are in business growth. I've used kaupapa Māori and mana wahine methodology, and I've also conducted my interviews using qualitative and longitudinal research with 10 Wahine Māori entrepreneurs who were experiencing business growth. I interviewed each 3 times over a 15-month period. From accountancy through to virtual reality technology, from growing nationally to trading globally, their businesses were very different. However, at their core, growth is not just about profit. It is the value and the values each weave within their enterprises. I've just completed my findings chapter, and my participants have shared an intergenerational focus, focusing on the future of their business and their whānau. A dogged resilience in the face of systemic barriers. As one entrepreneur said, "When one door closes, I'm climbing through the bloody window." A growth strategy that weaves Western business practices with Te Ao Māori principles, and a profit for purpose mindset, putting their money back into their business to employ more people and to create wonderful and meaningful products. I would like to thank my Wahine Māori entrepreneurs for their wisdom and their time. They are superheroes in their own right. Thank you.
It's my great pleasure to welcome our next speaker to the stage, Lorraine Anderson, who'll be speaking on treaty whispering, hapu invisibility and the whispering way within the treaty settlements process. Please join me in welcoming Lorraine to the stage.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Treaty whispering examines the Treaty of Waitangi land claims pertaining to the Mātuatua Deed of Settlement 2021. I am proposing that sub-tribal hapu invisibility occurred when the hapu voice was reduced to a whisper by the Crown-led process of negotiations with large natural groupings only, such as iwi. I wish to examine the effect this process had on specific hapu in the Mātuatua claim. My interviews, both focus group and individual, ask hapu leaders their views on the power play between hapu and iwi and what were their experiences with the Crown and iwi when negotiating the return of ancestral land. I'm also proposing that the whispering way is a theory of both knowing and not knowing, to be used as a checklist, enabling the individual to retain a powerful and calm presence in the face of controversy or when facing fear. In this case, fear of continued alienation from ancestral or tupuna land. The study will examine how leadership can deliberate clear-cut and often dispassionate outcomes, irrespective of hapu intentions. The inner purple triangle, as you can see, depicts my doctoral path. The whispering way appears here as well to assist me as a kaupapa Māori, reflexive researcher, and as a hapu member to keep a balance. When rangatahi or younger members are developing a leadership role on behalf of their hapu into the future, for example, can their leadership be pursued under conditions determined by what I have called the whispering way? In conclusion, treaty whispering examines and investigates land claims for hapu and iwi and Mātuatua and compares them to other Indigenous claims in Canada and in Australia. I also consider the whispering energy within the individual that drives the individual to succeed and how that influences leadership for hapu and for people in general, utilizing the whispering way as a key component of treaty whispering. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matthew Taylor, who's going to be talking about hybrid renewable stream systems, rethinking how we boil water. Please join me in welcoming Matthew to the stage.
My story begins 2 million years ago. A tree has been set ablaze by a bolt of lightning. This would have been humans' first interaction with fire, and ever since that moment, humans have been refining their control over fire and the heat that it can provide. Processing industries are no different. They leverage heat all the time by boiling water into steam. Now, unfortunately, the chemical engineers of old boiled their water by burning fossil fuels. And so it falls to the chemical engineers of now to undo the mistakes of the past to avoid the climate crisis we currently face. But renewable boiler technologies, they're not novel. We see all the time about the likes of Fonterra installing new biomass boilers or electrode boilers. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, why are other sites still burning fossil fuels? The simple answer is it's just too expensive to decarbonize. And so my work focuses on reducing the economic barrier so that more decarbonization projects can get across the line. And I do this by changing how industry thinks. Rather than a binary question of do I use a biomass or electrode boiler, I instead ask the question, how could we use both of them together at the same time in a hybrid steam system? This works by leveraging the varying electricity price. We use the biomass boiler when the price is high, and the electrode boiler when the price is low. This should overall reduce our operating costs. And so to test this theory, we partnered with an industrial site who had to decarbonize. They're currently running on gas. And we found that if they installed an electrode boiler and changed their operating habits to be a bit more flexible, they would both reduce their costs and emissions almost immediately. And we also found that looking forward into the future, if they had a hybrid system, it would be cheaper to operate overall compared to a single fuel system of either type. And so this is great news for industry because it means that decarbonization is both accessible and economic. And so we shared these results with industry, and we were really pleased to learn that many different sites would actually start to bake this methodology into their decarbonization action plans. But there is a little bit of irony that we have to accept. Process heat started by a bolt of lightning and a tree on fire. And now, as we look to the future of process heat, steam is going to be generated by a bolt of lightning and a tree on fire. Maybe this was a sign of what we probably should have done the first time round.
Our next speaker is Charlene Nathan, whose title is Leading Between Worlds, Exploring Pacific Identity in Secondary School Leadership Practice. Please join me in welcoming Charlene to the stage.
Imagine you're 16 and your entire world is about to change. You're leaving your island home, your family, language and culture, headed to the land of milk and honey, Aotearoa. In 1967, that was my mum. She boarded the Moanaroa from Aitutaki with nothing but hope and the belief that she could build a better future for her family. My mum and thousands of Pacific migrants in the 1960s and 70s headed to New Zealand on the promise of work, education and opportunity. Fast forward 20 years, and here you see my mum, my grandma, my siblings and me. And to the right, more recently, me with the Polynesian Panthers. These photos speak to legacy, leadership, equity and resistance, key themes at the heart of my research. Because the reality is, New Zealand's education system, built on a colonised foundation, is not equitable, and it doesn't work for everyone. 9% of our student population are Pacific, projected to be 20% by 2050. Many of these students at the tail end of our results, yet fewer than 4% of our principals are Pacific. Principals who make key decisions around streaming, equity, identity and discipline, so that gap matters. My research asks, how do secondary school principals, Pacific identities, shape the leadership practice? I'm focusing on principals who lead between worlds by upholding Pacific values whilst navigating institutional systems that weren't designed with them in mind. To do this, I'm using Talanoa, a Pacific research method and methodology that is grounded in rich, open and respectful conversations. It's not about extracting answers, but listening deeply to their stories, to their silences, and all of the spaces in between. Because these principals are more than just administrators. They are cultural leaders, wayfinders and bridge builders, yet their stories are largely missing from our research, from our policy and our leadership development. My work aims to change that by contributing to a more culturally responsive understanding of school leadership, one that reflects the strengths of Pacific peoples. Hence, through this research, I want to ensure that Pacific principals are not just surviving in the system, but their practices and their experiences are helping to transform it for all of our communities and our tamariki. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amna Yamin, whose thesis topic is To Be or Not to Be, Negotiating Leadership Tensions at the Intersections of Gender, Religion and Culture. Please join me in welcoming Amna to the stage.
Women are not biologically built to fly a plane, said a male civil servant during a grassroots leadership training that I was facilitating. Vehemently supporting his view, he claimed that religion deemed only certain roles appropriate for women, and perhaps leadership in the public domain wasn't one of them. I should have been shocked, but I wasn't. Growing up in Pakistan at the intersections of gender, religion, culture, I've heard this message again and again, in how leadership looked, in who was taken seriously, in who spoke, and who was interrupted. And that's what became the impetus of my research journey, to ask, how do women in Pakistani academia understand their leadership? And what happens when their identities, gendered, religious, cultural, pull in different directions? I explored the lived experiences of women academic leaders across the country through interviews and storytelling methods. Women who led universities, boardrooms, and research centers, and yet are asked, how do you plan to balance work and home? Women told in meetings they are chairing that a woman's voice only counts half. But I also heard other stories. Stories of women reinterpreting faith to reclaim power. Stories of young daughters cycling to school when only brothers were expected to. These women are not all the same, and that is the point. Western leadership theories often render the third world woman invisible or as a passive victim. My research challenges that. By situating the Pakistani woman within her own history, religion, socio-political context, I show how leadership emerges not despite these conditions, but through them. So what does it mean to become a leader? I've found that a woman's leadership identity is rarely declared. It is negotiated. In families where fathers often grant legitimacy, in institutions where patriarchal hierarchies still govern who is allowed to lead, in societies where patriarchal norms still define what a good woman should be, and yet she leads. She may wear a hijab and run an AI research center. She may quote the Quran and demand gender parity. Leadership for her is not static. It is a relational, evolving practice, one shaped by faith, family, institutional memory, and her refusal to be reduced. So, to be or not to be, these women answer with every step they take, not by rejecting who they are, but by rewriting what it means to lead at the intersections of gender, religion, culture, and institutional power. Kia ora.
Okay, 2 speakers to go. Our penultimate speaker is Elisa Adil, who's speaking on industrial digital twins, a high-level model for integrating process simulation tools with energy models. Please join me in welcoming Elisa to the stage.
Imagine standing inside the factory, not the real one, but the virtual one. Everything is the same. Machine hums, energy flows, and production happens. But here, you can pause time, test ideas, and optimize operations without affecting the real world. This is the power of digital twin. And in my research, I'm going to solve critical global problem, reducing carbon dioxide emission from industrial processes. Industry accounts for nearly 1/3 of the world's energy consumption and for emission, while we have many process simulation tools and energy models, but they do not talk to each other effectively. It's like solving a puzzle where pieces are from different boxes. Result, inefficient system, lost opportunities. Here my research comes in. I'm going to develop a high-level integrated digital twin model. Think of this digital twin as a flight simulator for the factories. Just as pilots use simulation to safely practice and test their skills, industry professionals can use my platform to test new ideas, adjust settings, and immediately see the impact on energy usage, all before making the changes in the real plant. How do I make this possible? First, I map out every key process of the factory, turning them into the digital modules, such as icons of the software. You can connect these icons digitally to visualize the process of the factory, just like the real machines are linked in the plant. Next, I feed real-time data through sensors, such as pressure, temperature in the software. Then, I integrate process simulation tool and energy model to predict the changes, like how much energy is consumed by increasing the temperature and overall performance of the system. With this integrated twin, you can optimize before implementation, improve sustainability, visualize energy flows. What makes my approach unique is it is model independent, scalable, and designed to support design and operational phases. A full life cycle solution. Instead of running dozens of disconnected tools, my one intelligent model works clearly. My vision is a future where every factory has a digital brain. The factories of the future will not just run. It will run responsibly, and it will all start in the plant room with data, strategy, and digital twin. Thank you.
Okay, our final speaker of the evening is Mahmood Kodadadi, who'll be speaking on natural elegance, engineered strength, a smarter way to build. Please join me in welcoming Mahmood to the stage.
Imagine standing inside a beautiful wooden building, warm, natural, alive. Now imagine that building surviving storms, earthquakes, and the test of time, stronger and safer than ever before. My research is about making that dream a reality. Timber has been used for thousands of years, but modern engineering pushes it further. Today, we use glued laminated timber, or GLT, layers of wood glued together to create strong, elegant beams. But timber, like all materials, has its limits. It can bend, crack, or fail under heavy loads. That's where my idea comes in. What if we could reinforce these timber beams using thin, powerful stripes of steel, called formed steel, or CFS? It's lightweight, it's easy to shape, and most importantly, it's incredibly strong. In my research, I test real-scale GLT beams reinforced with CFS plates. I bend them, stress them, and push them to their limits, simulating what would happen in real-world structures. The goal is simple: to combine the natural beauty of timber with the hidden strength of steel. The results are exciting. With the right reinforcement, these timber beams don't just survive greater forces. They perform better, crack less, and last longer. So we can build taller timber buildings, longer timber bridges, and safer homes, all while keeping the environmental benefits that timber offers. In a world facing climate change, where every material choice matters, GLT beams reinforced with CFS offer a powerful solution. Sustainability without sacrifice, a strength without losing beauty. This research is more than just tests and numbers. It's about reimagining how we build, combining the wisdom of nature with the innovation of engineering. It's about creating buildings that are not only strong, but also inspiring. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the first part of the evening. But before we move onwards, can I just invite all our speakers up to the stage, please? And when we can give them a good thank you. And while I do that, can I just say just how lovely that last hour was? I just felt quite hopeful and it's quite joyful and inspiring, and the future's in very safe hands, I think. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join us in thanking our 3MT Finalists 2025. So our judges will now leave to begin their deliberations. So if we can just let them get their things together. And we will now have the intermission, which will last between 20 to 30 minutes. There are light refreshments in the Playhouse foyer and the cash bar is open. If we could put the QR code on the screen, please get involved. So if you put your camera up to this, it should have a link that you can go to. And this is for the People's Choice Award. We'll close the voting after 20 minutes. But if people don't want to do that, they can see Tommy, who stood next to the bar with a clipboard, who will take your vote as well. And then we'll all come back here around 8:20 to see the results. Okay, thank you. Please enjoy yourself in the foyer.
runner-up, and then a first place. In terms of the methodology that we went about as a judging panel, what we looked at first is how did they make the total content work? We liked particularly people who began and ended with a concept and they explained things through it, but they kind of had a really good structure to it. We also liked people who used that visual well. So you had one slide, how did you use it? How did you integrate it? We also appreciated people who could really make a complicated thing and explain it. So at the beginning of every one, there was are they going to explain this? And some people did a fantastic job of that. And I guess the final piece that we prioritized was, and I guess across the people here, they are at different stages of their thesis. And in the end, where people had got further on and they'd got to some conclusions that they could well articulate, that was probably, we gave that a slight higher credit than if it was kind of still ahead of them. And we would say to people who did fantastic presentations, and if you're early in your thesis, maybe there's something to think about again, because certainly it'll only get better from what you guys have all done so far. So really that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for coming tonight. We had a great time, and I guess we'll get on with the announcement of the awards now. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with our People's Choice Award. Thank you for your enthusiasm. And I'll start by inviting Kirstine to the stage, who's going to present the award on behalf of the panel. I now have an envelope, which I'm really excited about opening. Yes, some of that. Okay, I am delighted to announce the People's Choice winner is Natalie Prinz. Thank you. We now move on to the Runners-Up Award. And can I invite Andrew to the stage to present this one? The runner-up of our 2025 3-minute thesis competition is Tua McDonald. Okay, we've only got one award left. I'd like to introduce Bella to the stage to present this, but let's create a bit of atmosphere, a bit of drama. The winner of the University of Waikato's 3-minute Thesis Award 2025 is Matthew Taylor. And that concludes the event for this evening. Thank you so much for coming out. Wasn't that just fun? Didn't it just make you feel good about the world? Very hopeful. I'm now ready to retire. I can just hand over. We're in safe hands, everyone. I just want to end with some thank yous. I'd like to thank the School of Graduate Research team. They've been absolutely awesome. This accumulation is months and months of heats and work behind the scenes, and they have done an awful lot of work in making this happen, so thank you. You've been awesome. I'd like to thank the judges. That was a tricky task. That's rather you than me, okay? Outstanding. And also our 10 speakers. You really represented University of Waikato research so well. We're so proud of you. Okay, and just finally, thank you for sharing your evening with us. It's been a really good way to spend some time, and we'll see you at the same time next year. Thank you.